So I said that isolated doesn't have to mean an island, but now I realize a lot of these books take place on islands, so no. So, what a gem. I don't know why I keep saying okay. People will never learn. Not complete. Yeah. No, I haven't read this one yet. Let me mix it up with something I have read. What did you write? I'm full of excuses today. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to another book recommendation / Audrey's fake TBR video. So today I want to talk about isolated books. All thrillers? All thrillers here. Isolated thrillers. But my twist on the isolated thriller is that for me, isolated thrillers doesn't have to mean and then there were none, trapped on an island with a killer with no way off. So there are some of those books in here, but also it could be a book that focuses on an isolated setting, like a full town, which is the inspiration for today's video based on the book I just read, which is probably at the bottom of the stack. It's 1000% at the bottom of the stack. So I just finished reading Snowblind by Ragnar Jonasson. So this is his debut. This is part of his Dark Iceland series. And this is a 6-book series. I started reading him after hearing about him from Abby at Crime by the Book. And I actually read his Hidden Iceland series, the Holda series is what it's also known as, which is a 3-book series, which is absolutely fantastic. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. But I'm going to talk about Snowblind today. So this book is set in an isolated town in northern Iceland. And when I tell you I have listened to this town name on a pronunciation app more times than I can tell you, and I still can't say it. So I'm going to ask forgiveness out of the gate here. Siglafjord. I'll put it across the front. So our main character, Ari Thor, is a rookie police officer who was living in Reykjavik, and he is offered this opportunity to go to this small northern town in Iceland. And he takes and my battery died because not the first video I'm filming today. Okay, so back to Snowblind. So Ari Thor is a rookie police officer. He accepted a job in this northern town in Iceland. And it's one of these towns where he is told out of the gate, like, nothing ever happens here. People leave their doors unlocked. People have known each other their entire lives, basically. Very few people are from the outside. Easy gig, no worries. But on the first page of the book, we know that there is a woman's body bleeding in the snow. And then we wind up going, of course, sort of multiple points of view, multiple timelines, trying to figure out who this woman is, and then the police investigation. So Ari is definitely the outsider in this town, and he's not even so much trying to fit in, but trying to make a mark in some ways. And he's taking his job very seriously, and he wants to be a good police officer. So what I loved about this book is we get some really great characters, we get some really great atmosphere, and the isolation vibe in this is we have this very small town, which in and of itself is isolated, like a one road in, one road out kind of a situation. And then partway through the book, we do get a blizzard that cuts off that one road in and that one road out. But it is a full village of people, so it's not like a handful of people on the island with people getting murdered. And it definitely has super Agatha Christie vibes to it in that you get a huge cast of characters, which at first I will admit spun my brain a little bit. But you get a huge cast of characters, we get a lot of backstory on people, a lot of understanding of their connections, and trying to figure out who could be responsible for what happened to this woman. So I really enjoyed it. I have the other 5 books in the series, and I am planning to continue on with it. I really enjoyed Ari Thor as a character, and I'm super curious to kind of see where his story goes, because like most books that are in a series, we do get resolution to questions, but we also have a little bit of openness. So I'm excited to see what happens next. So a book I haven't read yet, which has more of an isolated building vibe to it, is The Lingering, and this is by S.J.I. Holiday. So I bought this book a little bit ago, and I'm very excited to read it. This is always, anytime I do one of these videos of like the books I haven't read yet, it becomes the shame spiral, but it's okay, we're all friends here. So in this one, we have Jack and Allie, and they are looking for a fresh start and a new home at Rosalind House, a self-sufficient commune established in a former psychiatric hospital. So there's my isolated setting, what I'm calling an isolated setting. It says, but the couple are clearly not all they seem, and their arrival sparks a chain of unexpected and unexplained incidents. As the disturbing history of Roslyn House and the nearby village comes to light, events from the past return to haunt the residents, and someone is seeking retribution. So I like the idea where this story revolves around this house, which is not to say, because I haven't read it yet, it's not to say these people are like trapped in this house, but the house in and of itself, the building, plays a critical role and a central role to the story. So it's almost like the house is the character in that way. And I keep saying the house, because it's called Roslyn House, but the commune where they live is like the isolated vibe to it. Another book I haven't read yet, which has a complete locked room mystery vibe to it, and this is Guess Who by Chris McGeorge. Now this is a book I've had for a really long time because I had to have it. And it's one of those books that has not been predominantly central on my bookshelf, so I haven't seen it. I'm full of excuses today. So this is 1 room, 5 suspects, 3 hours to find a killer. So talk about like super tight timeline. So we have a waitress, a cleaner, an actress, a lawyer, a student. Everyone is a suspect. In a locked room with no escape and no idea how they got there. And then in the bathtub, the body of a man they all knew. Someone murdered him. Someone in this room. They have 3 hours to find out or they all die. The rules are simple, the game is not. So this book came out many, many years ago. Like I mentioned, because I've had it for many, many years. By many, many, I mean 2018. So I love the idea of this. I perhaps should read it and find out what it's all about. But again, this is like legit isolated, locked room. And this is very kind of in Then There Were None vibes to it, which also is the case with the Decagon House murders. Another book I haven't read yet. So this is by Yukito Ayatsuji, and it's a Japanese cult classic mystery. So this one is inspired by Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And it says, we have a group of students who are part of this university mystery club, and they decide to go to this island, which is a notorious site for a series of bloody unsolved murders. Some even say it's haunted. But when the first club member turns up dead, the remaining amateur sleuths realize they will need all of their murder mystery expertise to get off the island alive. So we get a very picking them off one by one, and it says, will anyone be able to untangle the murderer's fiendish plan before it's too late? So this is another one that I heard about from Abby at Crime by the Book. As you can see, she is quite the inspiration for me for many, many books. And this came out in 1987 was when it was first published. So there was a English translation in 2015. And I want to say I just picked it up last year, which makes it seem less like it's been on my shelf for a really long time. But I love that And Then There Were None vibe. I almost feel like maybe I want to do like a focused, isolated mystery, like binge read. But again, as soon as I say that, you know it's not going to happen. So, Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is all the legit isolated vibes. So we do have an island. We have one road in and one road out. And when the tide comes in, everyone is trapped on the island. So this one revolves around the Darker family. And they are coming to the island for their grandmother's 80th birthday. So she has invited everybody there. They all arrive. The tide comes in. And then by midnight, the first person in the family is dead. And they have to figure out who, what, why, all the things. So I very much enjoyed this book. And when I reviewed it, I mentioned the fact that, shame on me, I did a thing and wound up getting spoiled for something in this book, which definitely obviously impacted my reading experience of it. So I still very much enjoyed this book. I love Alice Feeney's writing. I love her writing style. I think she makes great characters. And there was something just very lyrical and, I don't want to say life lesson-y because that sounds condescending to me. So I don't mean like life lessons, but there were definitely some lines and phrases and moments in this book that felt very like hitting home, and that it was so much more than just, I don't want to say so much more than just a thriller. That also sounds condescending. And there was so much more to it than just an entertaining story. And I am always here for just an entertaining story. But this was one of those books, and I'm trying to find a line in particular that I flagged, and I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm trying to find a line that doesn't include something like a bit of a giveaway, but somebody says, I had nothing but novels and an overactive imagination for company. So like there's just like little lines or moments where I just very much related to it, but I really enjoyed it. I do think her writing is fantastic. I have heard mixed feelings on this book, and I can say, like, I understand why. Like, not everybody likes every resolution to a book, but I really enjoyed it. And despite the fact that I knew something that happens in the book, I didn't know everything, and I still managed to be thoroughly surprised by some stuff, thoroughly entertained by some stuff, and I really enjoyed it. So this, again, is legit isolated vibes. Another island book with a very similar premise that has legit isolation vibes is The Club by Ellery Lloyd. So that is another one where there's a one road in, one road out situation. Tide comes in and they're cut off. But in that book, The Club is like this ultra expensive, ultra exclusive club for the rich and famous and celebrity types. And they open up clubs around the world. And this book focuses on the opening weekend of this new club. And this is very much rich people behaving badly, which I love. And you get a very upstairs, downstairs feel to it because we get points of view from the rich and famous celebrities that are there, as well as the staff who is supporting the club, who is like the housekeeper, the woman who is who is managing all of the events, the assistant for the owner of the club. And I loved that insight to it as someone who has worked in behind the scenes support roles and is not the celebrity at the dining table. I very much enjoyed the perspective of those folks, and I just thought it was really well done. Like, that was like delicious. And that's another one of those books where we know on page 1 somebody's going to die, and then we go back in time and like lead up to the event, and I just thought it was thoroughly enjoyable. So I highly recommend that one. I binged that book earlier this year. I had an arc of it, and I just absolutely loved it. So if you want the isolated island vibe, that's another great choice. And another book which has an isolated location vibe, which I haven't read yet, is The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and this is by Stuart Turton. So this is the UK edition. I know in the US it's the 7.5 deaths. I don't know why they made the change, but as I've learned over time, that's not totally unusual. So this is one of those books. I know several people who've read it and totally loved it. And at the risk of sounding stupid, but here we go, I know that this is a book that you need to be able to really concentrate on, which is not to say I don't concentrate on other books, but I am not someone who typically has large chunks of time to read, and I'm a lot of like in and out, in and out. So I know where I am right now with sort of coming off Nano into the holiday season, things are very chaotic. It's hard for me to focus on a book that I can't do a little bit of dipping in and out of. And I know this is a book that you need to be like wholly invested in. So when the time comes, I will be wholly invested. So in this one, it says, at a party thrown by her parents, Evelyn Hardcastle will be killed again. She's been murdered hundreds of times, and each day Aidan Bishop is too late to save her. The only way to break the cycle is to identify Evelyn's killer. But every time the day begins again, Aidan wakes up in the body of a different guest, and someone is desperate to stop him ever escaping Blackheath. So that is the house where they are. It says it's darkly comic and mind-blowingly twisty. So I know that Groundhog Day feeling of him waking up in a new body. I don't know if he remembers day to day what he's already learned. Like, I don't want to know too much about it, but we get to see him each day as he tries to figure out who killed Evelyn so he can save himself. So again, I've heard great things about it. I just need to actually find out the great things. Okay, another one that has an isolated setting is Runtime by Catherine Ryan Howard. So I read this one this summer and I absolutely loved it. I'm obviously not going to recommend a book to you guys I didn't love, so I don't know why I keep saying that. But in this one we have a film set, and it's a horror movie film. And our main character, Adele, is a former soap star. She's got some stuff from her past, and she winds up taking over the lead role in this horror movie because the previous lead actress had to drop out. So this is like Adele's chance at a comeback, and she takes it. So this is set on an isolated area on the coast of Ireland, and it's set on a horror movie set. And what's really cool about this book is we have a script interspersed with the narrative. So you get actual script pages in between the story itself unfolding. And, you know, it's like set up script style. And it's one of these things where the script is kind of coming to life on set, but not when Adele is filming. So super meta, super creepy. I love Catherine Howard's writing, and I love her sort of continued inventiveness with her work. So The Nothing Man was a book within a book. We've got the script here. 56 Days revolved around just 56 days of being in an apartment building with somebody during quarantine. And I just find her writing really great and her characters really great. And I love her stories. So I really enjoyed this one. So again, an isolated location and the horror movie vibe just puts it over the edge for me. The next book I have is another one I haven't read, and this is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So this was a book that like everybody and their dog was talking about, and I'm definitely going to read it. Just need to get there. So this one says, A Magical Island, a Dangerous Task, a Burning Secret. Linus Baker is a by-the-book caseworker in the department in charge of magical youth. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records for company, but his quiet life is about to change. So he winds up getting this highly classified assignment to go travel to an orphanage on a distant island and determine whether 6 dangerous magical children are so dangerous, in fact, that they're likely to bring about the end of days. So he winds up meeting with the children and then with Arthur Parnassus, who is the master of the orphanage. And it says, as Linus and Arthur grow closer, Linus discovers the master would do anything to keep the children safe, even if it means the world has to burn. Or worse, his secret comes to light. So it says it's an enchanting love story masterfully told about the profound experience of discovering an unlikely family in an unexpected place and realizing that family is yours. So what I've heard about this book is so many people love it to death and they love the characters in it. And while we are on an island, it's not this murderous and then there were none vibe, but more of just an isolated setting where the story takes place. So I guess this isn't thrillery, but it's fantasy. So I've got one non-thriller on here. Look at me go. So the next book I have is The Secret Life of Writers by Guillermo Musso. So I read The Reunion earlier this year and I absolutely loved it. And this book, I will not even pretend that the title of this book isn't what grabbed me. And I think it was after I read The Reunion, or I had done a video talking about maybe possibly reading The Reunion, that somebody mentioned this book. So put it on my radar, looked it up, saw the title, saw the cover, read what it was about, bought it. So this one says, in 1999, after publishing 3 cult novels, celebrated author Nathan Falls announces the end of his writing career and withdraws to Beaumont, a wild and beautiful island off the Mediterranean coast. I need to talk slower. In autumn of 2018, as Falls' novels continue to captivate readers, Matilda Money, a young Swiss journalist, arrives on the island, determined to unlock the writer's secrets and secure his first interview in almost 20 years. Then a woman's body is discovered on the beach and the island is cordoned off by the authorities. And so begins a dangerous face-off between Matilda and Nathan, in which the line between truth and fiction becomes increasingly blurred. So this one, we do get an isolated setting. We do get a dead body. We get a fantastic map, which just makes it even better. And I'm expecting a really great story. I was surprised with how much I loved The Reunion. Like, that was a book that I dog-eared a ton, and I expected to like it, and man, did I just really enjoy it. And that's another one that's isolated-ish, but more involved in like a reunion of people who went to a high school together and need to deal with some stuff. But this is a newer book, and this is just like island, dead body, isolated. Another book with an island feeling, though I was like, not all isolated books have to take place on islands. This one does. So this is The Ice Twins by S.K. Tremaine. So I got this earlier this year, and this one says, one of Sarah's daughters died, but can she be sure which one? Terrifying. So a year after one of their identical twin daughters, Lydia, dies in an accident, Angus and Sarah move to the tiny Scottish town Angus inherited from his grandmother, hoping to put together the pieces of their shattered lives. But when their surviving daughter, Kirsty, claims they have mistaken her identity, that she in fact is Lydia, the world comes crashing down once again. As winter encroaches, Angus is forced to travel away from the island for work. Sarah is feeling isolated, and Kirsty, or is it Lydia, is growing more disturbed. When a violent storm leaves Sarah and her daughter stranded, Sarah finds herself tortured by the past. What really happened on that fateful day when one of her daughters died? What? This is one of those books where I feel like I've seen the title, but I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it. And I think in all fairness, this book did come out a little bit ago. Yeah, this also came out in 2015, so I understand why it might not be front list. But I am, or like front of mind with people, I'm intrigued by this one, of course. And I mean, which twin is alive? What the heck, right? Any excuse to find. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Of course, I'm going to recommend a Riley Sager book. So this book, in the isolated vibe, to me, centers around the house in this book. So even though our characters are not cut off from the world, this book revolves very much around this haunted house. Haunted house? Question mark. So it says, bells that ring themselves, record players that turn on and play music in empty rooms, ghosts that climb out of wardrobes. So in this one, our main character is a woman named Maggie, and she has inherited Bainbury Hall, which is this Victorian home up in Vermont. Yes. Which she lived in with her parents when she was younger. And they lived there for like a sum total of like 20 days before... Yes, 20 days before fleeing in the dead of night, because in a very Amityville horror kind of a way, her parents were convinced that this house was haunted, and her father wound up writing this best-selling Amityville horror-ish, best-selling nonfiction book about this haunted house. So as far as Maggie knew, her father had sold the house, but when he dies and she inherits it, she finds out she was wrong. And her mother begs her just not to go up there and to just let it go. But Maggie happens to be a house flipper. She renovates houses, so she's going to go up there, fix the place up, sell it, and like get out of Dodge. And also, Maggie never believed the house was haunted. Like, she very much believed her father made up this story, got rich off of it, always was a rift between her and her parents, and she's going to kind of come to confront the past. But sure enough, she gets there and like weird things start to happen. So I loved this book. And in my Riley Sager grand scheme of things, you guys know Final Girls is always top dog. This is like right there underneath it. I really, really loved this book. And in my Riley Sager reread project, this is next up on my list. So I'm really excited for it. But I devoured this like in a matter of days. Yeah, I read this book in 3 days. So I just totally loved it. Huge fan. And I do feel like this is a great entrance into Riley Sager for people, because you still get that horror movie sort of inspiration to it. And his question was, thinking about like the real Amityville horror, is what happens to the kids many years later. So this is the story of the kid many years later. So I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I think it's definitely one of his best. And then a book that I won in the Goodreads giveaway from an author I also enjoy is The Island by Adrienne McKinty. So I haven't read this one yet. I read The Chain, which was like off the rails crazy, like No Exit, Taylor Adams, kind of just like Crazy Town. That was another book I devoured. So this one I've heard excellent things about as well. So in this one, we have a new family who is on a trip deep into the Australian outback. So we have Heather Baxter, and she married Tom, who was a widowed doctor who has a young son and a teenage daughter. So everyone is jet lagged and exhausted, and the kids are so over their new mom. So they discover this remote Dutch island off limits to outside visitors, and the family managed to talk their way onto the ferry, taking a chance on adventure far from the reaches of iPhones and Instagram. Big mistake. Very Pretty Woman. Big mistake. Huge, huge mistake. But as soon as they set foot on the island, which is run by a tightly knit clan of locals, everything feels wrong. And then a shocking accident propels the Baxters from an unsettling situation into an absolute nightmare. When Heather and the kids are separated from Tom, they're forced to escape alone, seconds ahead of their pursuers. So I think this is going to be very high octane, very, I don't even know, twists and turns. I'm just basing it on the one Adrienne McKinty book I did read, where it was like things you never saw come at you. And I had a very hard time putting that book down. So I expect this one to be equally like pulled to the page kind of a situation. And then I have The Shining by Stephen King. So I haven't read this one yet. I am high-key, low-key scared of this book, but I really want to read it out of a curiosity factor. So all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. So this is about Jack Torrance and his family. Jack is the winter caretaker at the Overlook Hotel, and just all bad, messed up stuff starts happening at this place. So I have never seen the movie. I know snippets of it. I don't know the whole story. I feel like everyone has seen that Shelley Duvall scene and the Here's Johnny. Like, I feel like everybody's seen that kind of stuff, but I would still very much like to read the book. This is also a mood for sure. And because it's all about the isolation and the snow and the winter, I feel like that 'tis the season to read this one. But I have it, I'm just a little afraid. I'm a little afraid. I read Pet Sematary, I read Misery, so I'm like slowly inching my way into Stephen King, and I don't know. Let me know if you think I'll be terrified or if I should just do it. The next book I have is Her Dark Lies by J.T. Ellison. So this is a wedding weekend off the coast of Italy, just idyllic, rich people behaving badly, and all sorts of mystery and what ifs and what's going on here type of vibe. So we get multiple POVs. This is J.T. Ellison's sort of homage to Rebecca. And this was the book where I had read this book, was listening to an interview with her afterwards, and she talked about how it was her tribute to Rebecca. And then I read Rebecca and I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. And also so many other books I have seen or movies I have seen before and since, I was like, oh, this is a Rebecca thing happening here. So if you're a Rebecca fan but looking for a bit of a modern twist, this would be a great one for you also. So in this one, we are following Claire Hunter, and she's supposed to marry the charming Jack Compton. And the super wealthy Compton family is all there for the shindig, as well as Claire's family. So Claire is an up-and-coming artist, and we get, like I say, multiple POVs, multiple timelines. And it says, from the moment Claire sets foot on the island, something seems amiss. Skeletal remains have just been found, and there are other newer disturbances too. Menacing texts, a ruined wedding dress, and one troubling shadow hanging over Claire's otherwise blissful relationship. The strange mystery surrounding Jack's first wife. So I very much enjoyed this book, and I am a fan of J.T. Ellison. I enjoy her writing. I've talked about her before on this channel as well. I love her writing advice. So if you are a current or aspiring writer, I implore you to Google interviews with her, like on YouTube or podcasts, because she gives such tremendous writing advice. She strikes me as such an accessible, realistic person in that, like, I would love to like hang out and talk writing with her any day. But I also feel like she has such a strong sense of her storytelling. She writes series, she writes standalones, and I'm just a big fan of her work. But, you know, I'm going to gravitate towards anything isolated. And I just very much enjoyed this book. So it's a lot of characters. And again, we get sort of that rich people behaving badly vibe to it. And I always love these, you know, outsider trying to fit into the family and just all that messed upness that happens. It was so good. It was such delicious fun. And then the last book I have is one I haven't read yet, but it's by an author that I love, and it's Peter Swanson, Every Vow You Break. So this one says the lies started with I do. So we get another wedding one going on here. So Abigail kind of partied a little bit too hard at her bachelorette party, and she has a regrettable drunken one-night stand with a man who wouldn't even tell her what his real name is, but she's just like leaving it behind her. She's totally committed to Bruce, married, off for the honeymoon. So they have a honeymoon on a secluded island in Maine, and it's going to be the beginning of a beautiful relationship until the mysterious stranger mysteriously appears, and Abigail's future life and happiness are turned upside down. So I don't know what this man is up to. I don't know how he found out where she was. I don't know what's going on here. And I'm very excited to find out. So I very, very, very much enjoy Peter Swanson's work. I think he's just great. And I'm really excited to read this one. So we'll see. And of course you get like a police line from every breath you take. Love it. So those are my isolated picks for today. Like I said, a mix of things I've read and want to read. But let me know, hopefully you guys have found something on this list that's intriguing to you, or if there's something that I haven't read yet that you would recommend that I read, let me know. Not that it has to be that one. Perhaps somebody's read this one. Like I'm gonna hit myself in the face. All right, I'm gonna go. It's been a long day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in another video. Bye, everybody.